Well, welcome to the Vita headquarters in Cheshire. I'm with Simon Wilson. And Simon, we've had a couple of weeks now to reflect on Wembley and the fact we came within, 7 minutes of getting into League One. But for a first season back in the EFL, how do you reflect now on the last 9 months?
Well, I think the feeling is overall positive. I think at the start of the year we had another one of these chats, and we're just after promotion, and we felt like we wanted to go and attack the league. Now, the way that we started the league probably didn't give ourselves that best opportunity, but we made a good fight of it from that point forward, and gave ourselves, the players, the staff, the fans, hopefully some great moments over the course of the season. And we were right in the mix for automatic on the last day, and obviously right in the mix for promotion on the last actual game of League Two season. So we took it to the end. We didn't quite make the step, and we're disappointed about that. And we need to improve in order to make sure that we do make that step next time around.
It was a terrific effort by Dave and the players, obviously, but now, obviously, the nature of football is that you're looking forward. Given that you had that success in the first season back, finishing fourth, the bookies have already installed County as one of the favourites for the title, which brings its own pressure, of course. But what do you think a realistic target is for next season?
We want to be promoted, John. Everyone at the club wants to be promoted. We've all signed up to a journey of success, and the next step is to be promoted out of League Two. So that's the absolute aim of this season. And every single day that we're working will be with that in mind to increase the chances of that. If the bookies are right, then that shows that we're close. I think the bookies have made us favourites last year as well, and obviously there's some big teams coming into the league this year, and it's going to be a competitive league. So to be favourites, given all of that, I think that says that outside the club, at least, people think that we're a good side, a good outfit. And we should take the confidence of that and embrace it and go after it again, I think.
When you look at those rivals in League Two, and I'm thinking obviously, MK Dons coming down, Wrexham coming up, you've got Gillingham obviously spending money as well. Is it more competitive this time around, do you think?
In theory and on paper, yes, it is. You never know until you get into the games. There's been teams that we played last year that potentially didn't have budgets that caused us problems, and I'm sure that will cause those other teams problems as well. It's a really competitive league. Everyone's there to fight. There's a lot of games. There's a lot of travel. There's a lot of condensed fixtures, injuries that will play into it. And as we know, we're well resourced. It doesn't always go in a straight line. You have bumps in the road, and if those bumps last a bit too long, that sometimes you can suffer for them. So all those teams will face that. They're all good teams, and we really respect them. But what I suppose is the difference is that having more money or having more resources, it may mean that you're just still paying the same players a little bit more than you would have been paying them anyway. I mean, it's still got to attract players to come and play for your football club. You've still got to take good players out of other players' teams, etc. Money sometimes helps, but doesn't always guarantee that you're going to get the players, or you're not going to make the right selections all the time. So this will all unfold over the course of the season, and I think it's going to be a brilliant campaign for our fans and the fans of all the other teams in League Two to watch.
I know you've not had much of a break. Dave Challoner's been here, in fact, in the hour before we've come into this room. You've been here with him. I know your job is so much more than recruitment, but the fans obviously want to know about recruitment and about the strategy and what your approach is this year.
Yeah.
It felt last summer like it was quite a high level in terms of turnover because you were going into a professional league. It was going to be, not that the National League isn't, but it was a bigger step perhaps. This year, do you feel, because you've stayed in League Two, do you feel that recruitment is more a case this time round of cherry picking, being a little more selective and maybe not such a high churn of players?
Two things I suppose that go into that are, one, with very few players out of contract.
Yeah.
Having and then the second part of it is players that we were close last year with this group, and there's many of those players who might have been playing in League Two for the first time, or at our club for the first time have settled in well and seem to be doing okay, and so we think there's natural improvements to come from those players. I've also sort of spoken to the numerous other clubs that went through the heartache that we've gone through in terms of being so close but yet so far. And in general, the record seems to be is evolution rather than revolution in that moment. So I think that we're clearly close. We need to improve. So we'll look for opportunities to improve them, and we've got some exciting news coming with some of those things, with players joining the club and people re-signing. But it's not going to be wholesale changes. I think we'll be looking very surgically for where we can find those differences on those small margins and try to improve.
I've never yet heard a manager say, I don't need as much money next year. But with Dave Challoner, is he going to still have a very competitive budget as he did last summer?
Yeah, I think we've always been really well resourced with Mark in terms of it's all about the plan. So if you put a plan in front of Mark, I don't think he's ever said no. So it's about your plan. We don't tend to work on say, right, here's X amount of money, go spend it. It's more, what do we need? How do we get better? And as we said, we're close in terms of being at the level that's required to get promoted automatically. And there's a little gap, and we've got to try and fill that gap. So we're putting forward ideas and plans of how to do that, and Mark's happy to resource it and give us the best chance.
And just to echo what you said there, how then do you get better, and how do you bridge those gaps? I mean, I guess specifically, what areas of the picture you're looking at and thinking, well, yeah, that's where we need to strengthen? Yeah,
some of them are subtle. I think defensively we were excellent last year. Overall, the first, we were the team that scored most often in games, so we scored in a lot of games. Sometimes perhaps we didn't get that second goal in key moments, and in the first 10 games we were probably a little bit leaky, and different reasons I think for that. We felt sometimes we need to encourage the players to continue to take the risk in games when it's tight, is that they've got our confidence on the back end and they've got enough ability to go and keep taking the game to the opponent. And some of that, will just come naturally from the guys getting more comfortable being at the club and working together. And but also we want to encourage that with different things, and potentially players that will thrive in those types of moments of being a difference maker in a game when it's a marginal difference. So we need to look at how we get that mentality into group players we've got, and maybe if there's people externally that we don't have at the moment that can help us with that. We will look to recruit.
But just to push you on that, is that all over the pitch, or is there certain areas where you think there are definite gaps at the moment? Yourself and Dave Challoner, have you identified those positions? No,
it's a squad game, isn't it? So I think we're not looking to recruit many positions this summer. We will need some balance on the left side of the defence. Yeah. We may need some more attacking threat especially when we play games against teams that want to sit in and not come out of their own half, which we had a few times. So we'll look to answer those sort of problems and those questions that the teams are giving us. But otherwise, we performed well last year, and we want more of the same, and if not better.
And of course, two of your young guns, if you like, with Tanto and Jack played in that game at Wembley and played a big part last season as well. You're without Kyle at the start of the season. Do you feel in the short term you need to cover for him, or have we got people in the building already?
No, I think we saw over the course of the games whilst Kyle was out that different combinations of those strikers and different ways of setting up can be effective for the team. What we try to always say to Dave is that he's got a toolkit of players and ways of playing in order to go and win games. And with Tanto particularly, with Stretton particularly, we know we've got someone that can run in behind and someone that can finish. Half a chance. We know we're going to get an opportunity. Tanto's a big threat and a nuisance and a nightmare for anyone to mark, and going behind, strong as an ox. It's going to be hard to take the ball off him. Sometimes a bit unpredictable for us and for the opponent, but we'll get better with that. And of course, we've got people like Paddy who are goal scorers at the level and have been forever. So are not going to stop doing what they do. But we've also got attacking creative players that sit behind that. And it was really interesting to see how many of the teams that were promoted or teams that were champions across the divisions, which didn't necessarily have a top goal scorer, like 20 goal scorer. It's about a team scoring a lot of goals. And I think when you look at ourselves, is we've got players from all sorts of positions that can contribute, and maybe even a little bit more. When you see like someone like Fraser last year, perhaps a bit disappointed with how many goals he got compared to previous seasons, but we know that he can do it. So maybe there's an upside to come in that. And as we're saying, we're talking about small margins. So, 3 set piece goals might have been the difference. Who knows? So we've just got to keep working on that detail, and we've got to try and close that gap. And really, really comfortable with what we've got, but we'll always try to improve.
You've spoken to me a lot in the past about the academy, not just on tape, but privately as well. And I know you are genuinely very passionate and very committed to the academy, towards developing our own talent, nurturing that talent as well, bringing them through. Do you envisage perhaps this season being a breakthrough season for one or more players within our setup?
Yeah, it's a little bit generous to say he's one of our own in terms of we've come through all the academy, but we will certainly have Ethan Pye back with us this year. And 2 years ago we took Ethan as a released player from Rochdale, but we saw something in him, and we felt like with the right development plan, coaching, and an opportunity, and a bit of time actually, that we thought he was a really good player there. So he comes back into the squad after being a player of the season for Gateshead in the National League, who did well as a first-time team in that league, playing left-sided centre-half, which has been a position which we've always sought after, and I think every team does sought after. So have a kind of a 20-year-old that's an up-and-coming left-sided centre-half, which is athletic, mobile. I think we're in a really good spot with him, and I think we're all excited to see how he does. I think we need to be careful. Is it going to be a step for Ethan? It might take time. He might fly. Young players go at different paces, but it's not all about this season for Ethan Pye. He's got a good and a long career ahead of him, in front of him. But we're delighted to have him in our building, and I'm pretty sure he's going to play a huge part in our campaign this year. But whether he ends up going straight into the team or comes in and out or finishes the season in the team, I think he will be a part of it. And maybe he's the first one of this group really that we're coming through. We've got some other successes. I mean, Cody Johnson's going on a season-long loan now with Rochdale. Great to have a club that's just come out of the league want to take one of our academy players. Testament to him and his loan at the back end of the year with Banbury. I really feel we're getting that bit right in terms of our loan strategy and getting players out at the right level so that they get the next loan. And it's a series of steps. It's like a staircase that we want them to take. And we'll continue to do that. That's working well. And people like Joe Hillary and Keane Baru and Ashton Mee that did well for our academy last year, and particularly in the B team games that we ran at the back end of last year, we'll look for whatever their next step is, and that might be, more 18s games. We're going to play more Central League games this year sometimes at Edgeley Park, sometimes at Carrington. And then it might be at the right time they need to go out on loan, or they come straight into our first team. So, we're not nailing it. We're not in any way where we see the vision being, but we're starting it, and I'm really happy with the progress and the place we're at.
I know you and the board as well in general do take a very sort of strategic long-term approach, and obviously when you came in you talked about a 7-year plan. And I know that's to do with stadium development as well, but from your perspective, in terms of where we are now as a football team, as Dave Challender's side, where do you feel we are in terms of the 7-year plan? Are we on track? Are we where you'd want us to be at the moment? Given the disappointment of Wembley, are you still happy with where we are?
I mean, the goal of the 7-year plan was to be in the Championship in the 7th year. So what I can't promise is that we get there. It's a straight line, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, whatever we want to do. We've wrote a plan which looks something like that, because you've got to write something down. But when you look at the case studies of other clubs, it can be 3 years in this league and 1 year in the next league and hang on for survival in the chat. So it can be different ways of doing it. This is all, again, this is talk about steps with players. It's like steps with clubs. We feel like we've made a step this year, consolidated in a way where we know the league, we've nothing to fear. We've got players that will improve naturally because of their age and the fact they've just had to come off the back of a season there. Confident we can go make the next step. If we're having this conversation this time next year and we're a League One club, we're absolutely bang on where we need to be. We're really disappointed that's not happened this year. It would have been exciting to do a back-to-back promotion. That's really rare. It would be great to be able to tell everyone that's what we did it, but actually we're in a category of a lot of teams that haven't done it because it's a hard thing to do. But I think it's going to be, as I say, I think there's going to be some massive games this year. There's going to be some full houses. There's going to be some rivalries that we've not. So there's a lot to look forward to in that. And if we can come out on top with all that, then it's going to be a great year. And I'm sure if we are successful at the end of this year, we'll look back at last year saying that's really important to our success this year. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting. I've sort of used the word there, disappointment of Wembley, but I think actually, I mean, you were there, and the sense of excitement you must have got from the fans and from being on Wembley Way, I mean, it was unbelievable, wasn't it? Yeah,
this is it. In the end of the day, we can't promise that we'll be in the Championship. But what we really want to do is give our supporters, the people that give up so much of their time and the money to follow the club, we want to give them great experiences. Sometimes great experiences aren't always winning games, are they? Sometimes they're going on a bit of a journey, getting a kick in the teeth and getting yourself back up and going again. So, if we all come out of this, and at some point I'm sure at some point we will be successful in this league, and we'll look back at that, and maybe that was a bit of, the loss at Wembley gave us a bit of fuel to move on. Would I swap that to have won the game and be sat here as a League One club? Yeah, I think I would have done. But look, I think we had, as you say, the excitement of buying a ticket and travelling down to Wembley, and some of the games that we had at the back, even the game at, going into the last game of the season with a chance. Great moments, aren't they? That pint you have before you get to the stadium and you're thinking, what's going to happen today? It's, you want that kind of, you want that jeopardy, and I'm glad that we're giving that to the club at the moment. Sure, the people in this room that sit in this room would like a straightforward win every week, 3-0 win and a nice comfortable ride, but sometimes the drama is what makes it, isn't it?
Of course it is. Well, listen, I know how busy you are. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for seeing us.
Top man, John.
Cheers.
Cheers.